The SCCA Racing was a series. We've always heard what wins on Sunday sells on Monday. So what they were interested in is getting into the Trans Am racing program. There were Javelins and Z28s and Camaros, and years back they had the Barracuda was in competition. They had a new platform that was coming out, which was called the E-Body. E is for a 1970 series. So what they entered into was the Trans Am Racing Series. They were looking for two drivers, and one of the drivers they selected was Dan Gurney. Dan Gurney's AAR team was out of California, and they adopted the name AAR, All-American Racer, for that program. They participated in all the races through 1970, and it was the only year they raced the E-Body cars, which is the Barracuda and the Challenger, was in the 1970 series. The AAR Cuda and the Challenger TA were built during a 5-week period. They were all built at one assembly plant in Hamtramck, Michigan, that used to be referred to as Dodge, Maine. Those vehicles were interspersed amongst the general population of vehicles produced. There were two assembly lines. They had line 1 and line 2. So as you could imagine, there was a lot of complexity involved to integrate these very special and unique vehicles that have a special engine. So they had an engine build area that they had to work through. They had a special fiberglass hood that they were probably not used to handling at that facility. So there were a lot of challenges that the plant had building these. The powertrain in an AAR was available. Let's start out with the axle, 391, 355 gear ratio. They had available transmissions, either a 727 automatic, or they had an A833 new process gear 4-speed. Certainly by today's standards, everybody loves a 4-speed. They're fun to drive. It really enhances the driving experience. When you get into the engine, it was a very special engine. They had the standard 340 with a 10.5 to 1 compression ratio that had a higher iron content of the block. It was a 4-bolt main. It had 3 Holley 2-barrels on top of an aluminum intake manifold. So it had sort of an air induction system that was available. You can see the hood, the features of the hood with the teardrop. That was to bring in air, and the vehicle had the engine had special cylinder heads as well. So they had cantilevered push rods and valves, and it was just a very well-performing engine. For the series, these were put together basically by Keith Black. So he was instrumental in basically running these engines through their paces. And of course, when they were running in the sanctioning races, they were basically de-stroked to a 305 versus the 340, which was the street version. The wheel options that were available were 15-inch wheels, front and back. Behind us are 2 examples of a hubcap car with a trim ring, and then the other is the road wheel, which is a W21 package, and they had staggered tire sizes. So it gave the car a bit of a rear rake, unlike any other production car that Chrysler was producing in the E-Body series. In the suspension of the vehicle, it had, over the standard Barracuda, it had larger torsion bars. It had a front and rear anti-sway bar, which were not available on all vehicles. So it really added to the enhanced driving. They had special quick ratio steering that was available on these cars. Not all of them got it. But these vehicles were such a pleasure to drive, as opposed to some of the bigger block engines that had the engine more towards the front of the vehicle. This was set back, had better offset. The drivability was much better response, easier to corner. They were just a dream to drive. What's nice about it is the sensation you feel and hear with the side exhaust, the performance. It's basically a full package car. Where it really performs, if you've ever been on a road course with a car, this car versus another car, it's a night and day difference. The main reason is where the weight proportion is with the engine. You have a smaller displacement, the engine is closer to the firewall, so the balance of the car is much better over a 426 Hemi or a 446 pack. So the way to quickly spot an AAR TA on the road is you look at, it has a rear spoiler on it, it has a front spoiler on it, it has an Organisol painted black hood, very distinct, and it has unique stripes. The high impact colors are the sought after cars. They are FY1, which is lemon twist. They are FJ6, which is go green. They have FM3, Panther Peak, Moulin Rouge. There's just a variety of high impact colors for only $14.05. Who would have thought back in 1970 that $14 was going to make a difference 50 years from now? Behind us we have a wall of AARs. There's 20 colors available. They have just about every color. They're only missing a couple, and they are continuously pursuing those few colors. And I would suspect with help from the listeners of this program, as well as myself, Bob Ashton, and others, I'm sure we're going to come up with the colors that they need to complete their collection.